do that. He did it for 8 years.
Yeah, they got all kinds of stuff.
Oh, there's so much, but it's all about so much stupid floating out there because people didn't realize, oh, what do you mean this has been happening? Yeah. This isn't new. People just don't know.
Well, while you guys are over here bantering, I hit the live button about a minute ago. So,
oh, no, I didn't see that. Okay, cool. Well,
I set the show up. I ran outside to take care of some stuff. I thought you guys would take care of it while I was gone, but I was sadly mistaken. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for joining us on the Weekly Roundtable. I am the co-founder of the Liberty First Foundation, co-host of the show, Frank Johnson, host of the Range Report. Directly above me, Michael Marshall, co-founder of the Liberty First Foundation, my illustrious host. Directly to your left, I believe, on the screen is Jan Rains, our resident, let's say, alternative lifestyle expert. That's a good one for you. And Michael Vasquez, Dragon of the Southern Tier.
The Bronx. I'm in the Bronx now.
Yes. Scourge of the 5 boroughs.
Yes. I like that.
Yeah, I've been catching some of your stuff over the weekend. And I'm not used to seeing you standing outside with your little knit hat on with the snow blowing in your face.
Yeah, it's a different. Oh God, it's so different to be back into. I mean, this is where I'm from. This is where my family's been for the last, continuously 50 years. Same neighborhood, same place. So it's very interesting to be back, and so much has changed. So much, and the politicians care so little. It's gotten so bad.
Well, that hasn't changed.
No, it's actually worse. It really, really is. This was a middle-class neighborhood. It's now a low-income neighborhood with a huge amount of migrants. I don't know if they're legal or illegal, a mix of both as best as we can tell. It's gotten so bad that there was the health an emergency. Water pipes nearly collapsed 3 or 4 buildings, houses, and not one member of city council, assembly, state senator, not the congressman, mayor, none of them cared. They didn't even care enough to say, oh, we'll look into it, or it's not a problem, it's happened before. Nothing. They were told that the water pipe, the pressure was so high, buildings were shaking. An entire block, at least, of buildings were being shook to their foundation. People woke up fleeing their homes in the middle of the night, and they didn't even respond when someone sent them a message and said, are the water lines okay? Should we boil water? Is there any concern here? Is it going to happen again? Don't care. They don't care.
Well, all your elected people in New York have their attention elsewhere.
Well, hey, AOC came out and said that $174,000 a year just don't cut it.
It doesn't. If you pay 15 grand for a condo that is gated off from the public and you have a Tesla, that might add up the bills. By the way, she still won't pay off her student loan. Still won't pay off $107. She gets over. It's actually more than $174,000 tax free. By the way, she pays no federal tax on that.
Yeah.
Just like any member of Congress, they pay no tax on that, no federal tax. So she's got this money.
All federal employees don't pay any money on their federal income.
Right. And so she's got significantly more. So again, that would bump it up over 174,000 just to make it consider like other people. And she gets stipends on top of that and perks on top of that. So, but the thing is,
deals and
she can't figure out in the top 1% of the nation in terms of income, and top 5%. She's in the top 5%. And she still can't pay her bills. Well, that means she doesn't know how to manage money. which means why are you in Congress if you can't do your own personal checkbook?
Don't you know, Michael? You just print more.
That is her answer. Modern monetary theory. Print more. No one, there will be no consequence. No one cares.
Well, I think the biggest thing about it that cracks me all up didn't she study economy?
She did.
Wasn't that her major in school was economy? And this woman can't figure out nothing when it comes to figures.
No, she's an idiot when it comes to math. She has no idea. She has a degree. But remember, as she told us, she was honest. And this is the movement we've been seeing growing in America. It doesn't matter if it's empirically, mathematically, or semantically correct. She doesn't care about any of that. She cares about feelings. That's not me. I am paraphrasing exactly what she said on 60 Minutes. She told the world. She doesn't care about the truth. She doesn't care about facts. All
Wasn't
cares
she
about
one
is
of the
feelings.
ones that was spreading that meme around that if Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk gave $1 billion to everyone in the United States, that they could give $1 billion to everyone in the United States and still have money left over?
Oh, that's so stupid. That's people who
Yeah,
can't
I
do math.
remember that meme.
That's people who have no understanding of math, economics, or anything. It just sounds really good.
I just love the theory behind it. I mean, I don't care that the math is wrong.
Oh,
What
it's
I-
massively
what-
wrong.
No, I don't care that the math is wrong on it because that's not the important part of it. The important part of it is they deem fit to think that they can just take somebody else's money and give it to somebody else. You know,
Of
well, if we
course.
just take their money and we can give it to everybody else. Well, it's not your friggin' money. It's
Oh.
not your money to do anything with. You don't have the ability. If it's not yours, keep your friggin' mouth shut.
It's always their money because they're the government. They know how to spend it better than you do. And that's why we have a budget deal of $1.7 trillion. We have an extension that just got approved. And we know
And we got a government that has to spend $80 billion in order to collect $520 million.
yeah, you should show them the people won't believe it. Yeah, this is how much waste they do. It's by the way, folks, that wasn't a joke. Our government spends more money to collect money they are owed than the amount they owe.
Here's the thing. We can cite example after example after example, and we do it every freaking week. It's not going to change, no matter no matter how stupid everything gets. We can keep pointing it out and pointing it out. It just gets worse every time we point it out.
And Democrats are praising Biden for increasing the budget of the IRS in order to claim this $520 million back. Okay. And if we break it down, that 80 billion, let's get our facts straight here. That $80 billion funded to the IRS is over 10 years. So that means $8 billion per year. So if you do the math, the U.S. has invested $8 billion to collect $520 million. So that puts us in arrears $7.48 billion.
Well, and if I remember right, it was probably maybe 2 or 3 months ago that this same subject came up about them collecting X amount of money, and you brought up the same scenario with what they've been funded with.
Yeah, but this is all our government spends money. I wish they were spending like drunken sailors, because at least drunken sailors have a limit.
Yeah.
They don't. And we already know. No, the whole argument about the budget and they've extended it. And are we going to shut down? Oh, the shutdown's been put off. None of that is meaningful. That is meaningless stuff. You can
Oh.
go through the math. It's real simple.
Now we'll get into the collecting of delinquent student loans here in just a little bit, because
Well, that's
there's
a different
another whole deal on that.
that's a whole different kind of crime, and literally crime. But we know we know that January 1st, the United States credit limit is going to be 35 trillion, and they're going to raise it in January of 2025. That's a fact. We know this. The deal's already been made. So they're going to spend the money, 1.7 trillion. It's going to be spent. Your inflation is going to go up 7%. That's a fact. We know this. Nothing is stopping that. The only question is, what are we spending it on? And how much more are they going to spend that we don't have? That's it. That's the only real question. And no one wants to answer that. You put up, what is it? Biden-Harris administration announces additional $4.9 billion in approved student debt relief.
Now notice how paltry small the number is. Only 74,000 additional borrowers will receive forgiveness.
Yeah, notice how they make that the small print, not the headline.
Okay, so that, I'm sorry, I got to do some math on that, because that does not sound really well.
It's a huge amount of money for a tiny number of people, and it doesn't help America. It's still a violation. Biden doesn't have the right to waive off debt to the United States. That's not an executive power.
Each one of those people, on average, are getting $66,216.22.
You should type that out. You should type that out so people can see that number. They're not going to. Saying it will throw people off. What is that number again?
66,200 and hold on a second.
I was going to round it. I just rounded it up to 5 billion. So my number was 67,560. So, but in any event, it's still $66,000.
Right.
Is the average. Now, I'm just going to laugh my ass off when all the people who have this 66,000 for, when they have that debt forgiven, and they don't realize that the IRS is going to decide that seeing how the debt is forgiven, they're going to receive a 1099 C form for that debt forgiveness, and that's going to be chargeable as an income. So for that $66,000 that they're going to be forgiven, that they've had a whole lifetime to repay, they're going to owe a third of that in taxes for that fiscal year, which will be hysterical. Well, I guess that's what they need all those new agents for. If they weren't going to go after the debt, they're going to have to go after the tax.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me when we think about this. Why is he doing this? Because he has nothing to run on and he's trying to buy votes. This is an obvious attempt to buy votes. The president, the executive office, has no authority to do this. Congress could do it. Huh?
The Supreme Court said so. And this is another end run around the Supreme Court.
Exactly.
And they didn't have the authority to make the loans to begin with.
Which is another problem. I mean, if you go back further, the first problem, they gave the money out, which they don't have a right to do. But let's go with just the current problem. The executive branch, I don't care who's in the White House.
So now
go ahead.
Now they're forgiving loans that they didn't have the authority to grant. And now they're forgiving those loans which they don't have the authority to forgive.
Well, they're not forgiving them. They're transferring the debt from young student who they want to vote Democrat to middle class and poor people across America who may or may not vote Democrat. That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
They just moved the money. They took it from Peter, they gave it to Paul, and guess what? You happen to be Paul. It's going in your pocket. They're taking out your pocket. Talking to the audience, they're taking your money. That's all it is.
I wonder why inflation is so bad. But according to Biden, we're the best in the world. Our inflation is lower than any other developed country.
You want to know what's funny though? I just sitting on the look. I'm looking at the other computer and I see it. When I wanted to do the math, I just went to Google and it said 5 billion divided by 74,000. And all I expected is the answer to pop up. No, first thing that pops up underneath the calculator, White House cancels $5 billion in student debt for 74,000 borrowers.
Mhm.
So apparently, if that mathematical figure triggered the algorithm in Google that they would bring up NBC's article as the number one thing, a lot of people are doing that math tonight too.
Yeah,
Yep.
there's people doing it because it's ridiculous. And by the way, what about, I'm 50, about to be 56. Oh, I'm not getting any money back. Oh, I don't
I'm
deserve
not
it.
either.
Think about it. Every person who isn't part of those 70, why are those 74,000 people special? What makes them different? What's the privilege that they're being given? By the way, if we go by the numbers, as has been done independently by several colleges and several institutions, left, right, and center, 60% of the individuals who are getting that money waived, they're not Black. They're not Hispanic. In fact, they're not women.
And a lot of them are making well over $100,000 a year.
That is about 55% of them make over $100,000 a year.
Well, you would think that if you're going to rack up $67,000 worth of student debt or more, you should at least hope that your chosen profession was going to pay you enough to facilitate paying the loans back.
No,
I mean, unless
no.
of course you're
That's the
going to
funny
go
part.
through. Yeah,
Okay.
unless of course
Michael said
agree to
55%.
of feminism.
Michael just said 55% were making over 100,000. That means 45% are making under $100,000. So they racked up $67,000 worth of student debt to make less than $100,000 a year.
Yes. In fact, the
Well,
average debt
Fred Pete says he has his master's in basket weaving.
well, let's
They
be
could probably
honest.
make $100,000 a year over or more.
Well, if you were over at
In
Pier
basket
1,
weaving.
if you were ever at Pier 1 and saw what a nice wicker basket was going to run you, you could see how you could make that kind of money. It
Don't
sure
go
is
to
going to
Home
pay you a lot more than your master's in dead poetry.
Well, let's be honest. What they're doing is they're teaching these kids skills that are non-transferable. They have no equivalent or use in the mass in the real world. So those kids have to go into academia. They have to become teachers to teach other students the same useless kind of things. Literally, you can get a degree in lesbian dance theory. Now, and it's not because it's got nothing to do with lesbians. It's that is not a useful skill anywhere except in academia. So the only way you can make a living with that degree, and people get masters in these things and PhDs in this, the only way you can make a living in that is you have to become a teacher to teach other people that same skill. Same thing with Africana studies. Useless, has no purpose. You can go into a lot of the things that are being taught nowadays, which are becoming ultra specific, ultra targeted, and by the way, ultra progressive. And the more progressive your college, the more progressive the course, the less likely you are to make money with that degree.
You want to know what
Jeff
doesn't want to
what's scary? The student loan forgiveness.
You know,
Here's his agenda.
Aside from all the crap that college students don't know, what's scarier is what they think they do know. You know, recent polls said that 40% of college students today believe Wakanda is a real country.
What? What?
Wakanda. Wakanda forever.
I know what Wakanda is. I've been
Yeah.
I've been a comic book collector since the 1970s. Okay, before
Well-
there was a Wakanda, I was collecting comic books. I remember this. They actually think that's real.
Well, 40% believe that Wakanda is a real country.
Do they think that Black Panther and Captain America and Thor are real too?
That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter because Captain America, where is Captain America from?
America, wrong. Brooklyn.
America is a real country. So there's a basis in fact. Okay. Tony Stark is an American, is a basis in fact. You know, there are a lot of comic book characters that come from legitimate locations. Peter Parker is from Queens.
Yeah, the Submariners
Well,
from Atlantis.
Superman's
The Human
from
Torch is
Metropolis.
an android.
Well, there's no proof that Atlantis doesn't exist.
Okay.
So that is potential. But because there's a basis in
Metropolis
fact that
doesn't
some of these,
exist.
you know, that I guess, you know, I mean, I actually saw, was it last year, there was a rally at one of the Ivy League schools, and there was a Wakanda Forever Pride Day.
What?
There was a Wakanda Forever Pride Day. They were celebrating what I think it is.
Gay Wakandans? Gay
I
comic book
think.
characters.
Well, here's where I think. You know where I think it is. Wakanda sounds a lot like Rwanda,
Yeah.
and I
Uganda,
think
yeah.
that may have something to do with it because at least Rwanda, there's a little bit of precedence in entertainment with the movie Hotel Rwanda, that it had some prominence in names. The country of Rwanda has come in under political scrutiny in the last decade or two, so maybe that's why. Maybe that's why.
You're hurting my
40%.
brain. And no, it's neo-African. It's American neo-Africanism. That's why you got kids named Ladasha out there. It's you know, or Shaniqua. It sounds African. It's not.
Dude,
It's close.
I went to high school with a girl whose name was Aquanetta,
What?
like
Really?
the hairspray.
Oh God.
It just had an A on the end of it. It was Aquanet with an A at the end of it. So weird names have been around a while.
Yes, but there's a trend that has existed in the Black community since about the 90s where it really took off, where it's, you name your kids, it's the Neo-Africa movement, where you see the leftist Black Americans, the progressives in the Black community are trying to be more African, even though they have no clue. They're not connected to it whatsoever.
Well,
But to look like it, to virtue signal that they're very African, they're proud of their African heritage. So they adopt and they mistranslate things that are African to seem African. So they have no clue what they're talking about. And if you ask anyone in Africa, every Black American is not African. That's not even a question. It's not a guess. Ask anyone in Africa. They'll laugh in your face and tell you, stop insulting Africa. You're not African. You're an American.
Well, my favorite was always Kwesi Mfume.
What?
Kwesi Mfume.
What's that?
You don't remember Congressman Kwesi Mfume?
No.
No? He
No.
was the leader of the Congressional Black Caucus for a while. Walked around with one of them scarfs with the flags on it.
Dashiki or something. Yeah, they all do.
I'm
No.
surprised you don't remember that guy, Kwesi Mfume.
No, because he must have been inconsequential.
Yeah, well, he was, but his name was funny.
Okay.
Anyway.
Did you guys hear
What?
that China has developed a new virus?
Yeah, I saw something about. I didn't see if that was confirmed, but I saw
I've
someone
seen
said
like
that.
3 separate writings on it in the last week from different sources.
Yeah, none of the sources I saw were overly credible. But I've heard people talking about it. I don't know that the sources are.
Well, if it's
100%.
true, this is going to be scarier than shit
No,
because
it's not.
this COVID strain is 100% death rate.
No, here's the thing. That isn't
Yeah,
something
only
to
one
be
person's gotten it.
Yeah, but here's the thing. That's not something to be scared about. Every second world or greater nation in the world has a bioweapons development team. Even though it's completely illegal, it breaks Geneva Accords, every country has them. That's why the United States was so worried about our level 3 and level 4
Biolabs
in the Ukraine. We had to get them secured and evacuated. Why? Because we're doing research you can't do in America there because it's illegal. Now, whether or not what they were actually developing, we don't know, although we do know anthrax was present in several of those locations. That was reported. What were they doing in the anthrax? Well, realistically, understanding the world, they were doing bioweapons research, making anthrax even worse than just being anthrax. Every country in the world does it. There are a dozen different bioweapons every nation has that has a 100% lethality rate out there. We all have them. It's a question of will they get leaked out? That's the problem. I'm not concerned that they do it.
Well, and but I'm saying for me, I mean, that is a concern because it still hasn't been disproven that COVID came from a lab.
It hasn't been disproven. It is likely. It is probable. It is something the more we speak about it, the more likely this channel will get deleted, which makes me think it's even more credible because they will go to that extreme. So I just want to put out that warning.
And like I said last week, Fauci came out and admitted that the conspiracy theory that it started in a lab really isn't a conspiracy. So that tells you something right there, if you ask me.
No, I understand. But according to YouTube, quoting credible news sources like Fauci speaking on CNN and MSNBC and quoting him from his actual spoken, recorded statements about this is still something they will delete the video and or the channel for.
Well, that's like getting thrown in jail on Facebook for posting something that was posted on Facebook.
Yes. Or a newspaper. Yeah. They're crazy. And it's, by the way, and Frank, I saw your video earlier today on YouTube, on Facebook, and we're going to see more of this. This is all called what I call, and you've heard me say it before, the fortification of the 2024 election. And it's going to get worse. They are increasing the number of restrictions on what conservatives can say. Look at each and every one of the topics. Oh, this is an unapproved message. This is an unapproved conversation. The media isn't talking about this. Don't you dare talk about it. Don't let people think about it. Oh, you want to talk about Second Amendment and firearms? Well, the people who tend to do that don't vote Democrat. Okay, we're going to delete those videos because someone might see it and decide to not vote Democrat. And therefore, Frank has his videos that have been up for months and years wiped out overnight without a reason from Facebook. Why? People may see it. They might not vote Democrat. Got to get rid of it. Same reason why, 2 weeks ago, YouTube looked at the last 3 seconds of a 3-hour conversation we had on a Friday night and said, we're going to delete the entire video. Why? Because they've been talking about things we don't like. And their excuse, oh, well, there's a gun on the screen. There wasn't. And, there's a regulation. You can't have a gun in a video. That's not a regulation. They just made the whole thing up. This is the fortification. And you think it's bad now. Wait till we get to the summer. Wait until it gets to be September 1st. And for the normies, for the people who only pay attention to elections, critical time, it starts September 1st, Labor Day. Oh my God. Wait until you see the suppression they're going to be doing then. You think we're losing videos and They're trying to suppress us now. Wait for it. It's going to get worse.
Wonder
Another
if that's
thing,
part of the
another
reason why. So I wonder if that's part of the reason why YouTube has been slow walking my video transfer over to Rumble. Yeah, I've
Yes.
got on the YouTube channel. I've got over 200 videos on the YouTube channel, which is a tremendous amount of content. That is a lot of content. But it shouldn't be so much content that it's taking them almost a year, and they still haven't transferred approved transfer of almost 30 videos.
No, I've, as someone who has actually done that process, I have over what 1,800 to roughly about 2,000 videos, and I transferred everything over to Rumble about a year, 2 years ago, something like that. And I had the first 1,000 done in 3 days. It literally, they can do it in 3 days if they want to. They're not doing it because they don't want your comments to be out there. And by the way, this is your content, not theirs. You have the rights to it. They have the right to reproduce it because it exists on their platform, but they don't have, and they can delete it if it violates their terms, but it's your content. You have the rights to it. If you want to move it, they can't stop you. They just, which is why they just, oh, well, we're having a problem. I don't know. It's the algorithm. Sorry, we'll eventually get it over there unless you give up because of frustration and just decide to delete it all, which is what they're trying to do. That's another
that's
form
what
of intimidation.
They try to slow walk it. So number one, if they decide to delete it, it doesn't exist there now. And two, they hopefully you get frustrated and give up. Real quick, Dal, it says you're speaking of vector. I think you're talking about the Chris vector, if I'm not mistaken. It's the Chris line of firearms. The vector is one model of it. I don't know if you're speaking of a different brand of firearm or not, but I know the Chris vector was quite popular a few years ago. Not so much anymore. Anywho.
Okay, so there's just so much to talk about. Did you see that the Argentinian president blasted Davos?
Milei? Oh yeah, Argentina's Milei. He's a for people who don't know, he's a libertarian who was elected to the presidency in Argentina, who has vowed to, and he is in the process of destroying everything that the establishment has been doing. I mean, he is ripping down everything, and he's ripping into the World Economic Forum and the World Economic Council.
Because a lot of the premise of the World Economic Forum is things that Argentina put in place prior to Milei taking office. Okay. Argentina's economy prior to Milei taking over had an inflation of 160%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Its currency devaluation was accelerating. And it's believed that it's going to continue to accelerate under Milei, but Milei is starting to turn a lot of this stuff around. Milei blasted basically the socialist agenda. He said capitalism is the way out.
Yeah. He's a straight up capitalist. And, you know, it's interesting because kind of like when I talk to people about communism, because I lived in a communist country for a year and a half, Milei is talking about the World Economic Forum. He's talking about Davos. He's talking about these progressive promises. And he's like, we've lived with them. They don't work. Mm-hmm. We are the proof. We have, our economy is the proof. It doesn't work. It has never worked.
And he's literally trying to warn the world that it doesn't work. And he's using Argentina as the example, showing that they've implemented all these policies. And they literally have destroyed Argentina. Venezuela is going through the same thing. Venezuela did the same thing implemented all these programs and they're getting destroyed. And there's this huge push for universal basic income.
It
And
doesn't work.
first off, I'm going to stop it right there. There is nothing universal about it. Anybody that believes that universal basic income is an actual thing needs to rethink things because it's not universal. If it's universal, every person would receive a basic income. No. The way this works is it is a basic income for impoverished individuals. That's what it is. Okay, so let's call it out for what it is. Number one. Okay, number two. Most of these programs that I've seen that they are putting together aren't going to do anything for anyone.
Well,
They claim that it will, but it won't.
Well, let me interject because in December, a initial report came out, the largest experiment in the world for universal basic income has been conducted for several years now, since 2015, has been conducted in Kenya with over 200 villages. It is being funded in part by the WEF, World Economic Forum. Very little difference between that and the council. And it's been going on, and a couple of guys, former guys from MIT, put this together. And the experiment, the initial data that they have received, and the report's supposed to be coming out later this year on this, is that universal basic income doesn't work. You're promised that you're going to be able to be rich. You won't. You open up businesses. You don't. That it's going to help you with your day-to-day bills. It doesn't. It does not improve people's quality of life. This is the fact coming from a program funded by the WEF, largest one in the world. No one has done it so big, and it's only working to the extent that people are getting paid this money is because the money's coming from outside of Kenya. The Kenyan government can't afford it.
Right.
They can't afford to do this. The money's coming from outside of Kenya. It's the only way it's been able to go as long as it has. And as soon as the money turns off, the entire experiment's off. It only works when it's someone else's money.
And one country that's really pushing for it is Canada. Canada is pushing really hard. Okay. And Canada spends $81 billion per year on poverty programs, which is what UBI claims to be. Okay.
Well,
and they are claiming that if they reinvest that $81 billion that they spend on these poverty programs and put it in a UBI system, that it will raise so many people out of poverty.
No, it won't.
Okay. First off, if UBI was actually universal basic income, $81 billion would provide about $2.72 for every person in Canada. Okay. So if we say that UBI is only for half of the Canadian population. Okay. Or no, actually, I take that back. It is $272 per person. Per year, mind you. Now, if we cut that back to 50%, that works out to about almost $500 per year per person. Okay. You have to get below 5% of the population before the numbers get high enough to actually impact somebody's financial status and pull them up out of poverty.
But it will never work. It never works. And you can do the, I've seen people do the math everywhere. And again, we've seen it in Kenya. It doesn't work because there's several factors. Without going deep into the math of it and all of it, one, inflation. You're printing money you don't have to give to people that they didn't earn, that there's no value behind it. No one worked for it. They didn't produce anything. They didn't make anything. You just printed money and gave it to them. So
And
that creates inflation.
Whenever I get into one of these discussions about UBI, the first question I ask is, where does the money come from? And one of these deals, there's a UBI that I constantly see on Facebook that says UBI works. And it's primarily Canadians. And that's where they're claiming that if they reinvest the $81 billion they are currently spending on poverty programs in UBI, that it will make a difference. And that's where the money's supposed to come from.
No. So they're saying they're trying to get around the inflation aspect, except the 81 billion is already inflationary. So
okay. And then when I say, okay, so isn't that what, when they say, well, not everybody's going to get it, I say, okay, then it's not universal basic income. Well, they mean universal in the fact that everybody's going to have a basic income, but people that are working and are above a certain point, they won't need it, so they don't get it. Okay, it's not universal then. And they don't understand that.
No, they
just can't wrap their heads around that it's not universal.
No, they don't want to. They do get it. There's always a caveat to these programs. And again, Thomas Sowell made a great answer to this. It's never that Democrats and these progressive policies fail. It's that you didn't give them enough money. You didn't give them enough time. You didn't give them enough of your freedom. You always have to give them more and wait longer, because eventually, at some point in the future, they will always be right. So it's always your fault for not being patient enough and not giving enough, because they're always going to be right.
And it wasn't done right in the past.
Okay, it's never been done right in the past. There's always a better version where you've got it right this time. I can't.
Well, and I think another big thing that people really need to look out in this country when they talk about basic income that they don't, is it's another way for the government to control you.
Well, and that's,
it's like with them wanting to do digital currency. Okay, you do digital currency, you do basic income. The first time you do something they don't like, they're going to cut you off.
And that's one of the points that I try to make when I have these discussions is that, okay, UBI is just another form of governmental control. Okay, but beyond that, this UBI works that's on Facebook tries to push that UBI is going to be needed because AI is going to be taking away so many jobs. So right there, it completely blows UBI working. It blows it completely out of the water, because as more people are quote unquote displaced from the workplace because of AI, that means there's going to be more and more money needed in order to fund UBI. Where is the money coming from? Nobody can answer me that.
No, they can. Again, they don't want to, because in answering that, once you start actually looking for details, it always falls apart. It never works.
Graham, Alaska's oil dividend is more than just oil. Okay. When Alaska became a state and they wrote their constitution, they decided they were also, actually, no, it wasn't. It was after they became a state. The government decided that they were going to invest their overage into what is called a permanent dividend fund for all the citizens of the state of Alaska. And that fund is invested in various things. Oil's one of them. They invest in minerals. They invest in all kinds of stuff. And that is what actually pays the permanent dividend fund up in Alaska. Okay. It's not just from oil. It's not an annual oil dividend.
Well, let's reword this just for everyone out there. It's not an oil dividend. Oil pays into, this is a revenue disbursement keywords, revenue. This is a profit. This is profit sharing. The state of Alaska makes money. Oil, gas, tourism, land, lots of ways that
They make money off leases to oil companies.
Yeah.
They make money off leases to mines, various other ways that Alaska makes money. But also they invest money in various markets too. Right. And that's where this permanent fund gets its money from.
Well, that's the point I'm getting to is they make a profit. They take a percentage of that profit that they have been making, that they have in a fund, in a bank account, just like you do in your IRA. And because you live in Alaska, you now have earned a percentage of that. You are a shareholder in the state, and that gets distributed.
Let's go a step further here. Alaska also does not pay any state taxes.
Right.
Okay. Alaska is one of the most secure, financially secure states there is. Okay. Because each year they are able to pay not every household, every man, woman, and child that are citizens of the state of Alaska gets paid this fund.
And I'm pretty sure there's a qualification period that has to occur. You have to be a resident of the state for X amount of time before you're eligible to receive that benefit. You have to be a full-time resident of the state, I'm sure.
Yes.
You know, there's certain
you have
things
to be there at least a year.
Yeah, because I mean, otherwise you'd have people go, flying over there just to try and grab up a check, just like what they're going to wind up doing in California as soon as Gavin Newsom has his way and is able to give free health care to all the illegals. See, now, this is where the mayors of New York City and Chicago should team up together and hire up a bunch of Greyhound buses and say, hey, we didn't like the governor of Texas shipping all these people over here because we can't afford it, but California's got all kinds of money where they can give them a universal basic income. They can now give them free health care. Let's put them all over there. Let's send them to California. The weather sure is nicer.
Trying.
Actually,
why else would Newsom announce that his plan is so that all of these migrants would get free health care, if not to drive them to California, or to at least appear to be as magnanimous as possible to try and buy as many votes as possible? You mean there could be a political agenda behind it? Well, it would be a shame if that political agenda bit him in the ass, wouldn't it?
He won't be in office when it does, and he'll blame it on the next guy. It'll be the next person's fault because you didn't give them enough time, you didn't give them enough resources, you didn't give them enough money because the program didn't fail. You just were impatient. It's your fault.
Is this Newsom's last bid as governor of California? Is this his last eligibility?
No, but he's going to go for 2028. He's running for president.
Well, that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to resign.
No, but he's going to run for president.
Yeah.
Now, I also want to make one other point clear on the Alaska PFD. That permanent fund also funds their government.
Yeah.
Okay, that's how all the government services in Alaska are paid for is from that permanent fund. And then what's left over after the government takes what it needs, what's left over, that's what's divvied up amongst the citizens of the state.
Right. Easiest way to call that is profit. It's revenues come in, pay your bills. What's left over? Profit. So, I know Democrats are like, oh my God, you said profit. That's an evil word. Well, tell that to the people in Alaska.
And you would not realize how many people claim that Alaska's PFD is socialism.
It'd be interesting.
Capitalism in one of its purest forms.
They don't think it through. By the way, I did want to remind everyone. Is it there? Yeah. in case you were wondering, when we were talking about the shutdown earlier, no shutdown. It's been delayed. You're saved. I know you're so concerned.
It'll always be, yeah. And they look like heroes because they delayed a possible government shutdown.
No, they're not heroes. They're not looking like heroes. We're going to get the third downgrade of the United States from AAA to AA. And when that happens, and everything costs more, when interest rates go up, loans go up, when the cost of goods goes up, everyone's going to go, oh my God, what happened? And it's because of this kind of stupid kick the can down the road attitude. We avoided the shutdown. No, you didn't. You kicked the can down the road a little bit further. You're hoping people forget. It's going to bite us in the ass. It's already done it twice. Third one's the final one.
Now, getting on to this is an election year.
Oh, yeah.
Both the removal of Trump from the ballot in Colorado and in Maine have been stayed, okay, until the Supreme Court hears and adjudicates on the case. However, in other news, New Hampshire will not have a primary with Biden on the ballot.
Voter suppression, nullification by Democrats.
In other words, if you vote in the New Hampshire primary, which is the first in the nation by New Hampshire state law, Biden will not be on that ballot. There is a push to do a write-in campaign to get Biden some votes in New Hampshire. But the DNC has pretty much said that the New Hampshire primary is invalid.
Let me ask, Jan, let me ask you this. Imagine you went to vote and some politician came up to you and said, you're going to vote today, right? I don't like the clothes you're wearing. You can't vote. You'd be flipping out about that, right?
I had to go home and change before I came back and voted. I didn't know. Believe it or not, I did not know. I mean, I've been voting since I was 18, but I didn't know you could wear the person you were voting for's attire.
Well,
go ahead.
Here's what the DNC is saying. Okay, because the New Hampshire primary is non-compliant with new DNC rules, the National Party deemed the contest meaningless. The winner of next Tuesday will be in name only, walking away with no delegates to the convention in August.
Okay, so
in other words, the DNC is saying that New Hampshire votes and New Hampshire delegates are meaningless.
Okay, and so going back to my example before, this is voter nullification. The DNC, Democratic National Committee, is saying to the people of New Hampshire, to the Democrats, rank and file Democrats, you don't matter. Your vote doesn't matter. You don't have a vote. Literally, they have just nullified the vote. It is literally the same example I just gave you, Jan. Oh, I don't like what you're wearing. I don't like you. You can't vote. You are less, and let's call it what it is. The DNC has just told Democrats in New Hampshire they're not human beings. They're not American citizens, and they're not human beings. Because a human being,
meaningless.
A human being, an American citizen, would have a right to vote, and that vote would count. The DNC has just said, you aren't human. You're subhuman. A Democrat is telling other Democrats,
no, you're not even subhuman. You're meaningless. That's literally what they told them. They're meaningless.
Well, that's exactly what Biden said about Iowa. He said Iowa doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, they are literally eliminating people. They're just wiping them out and going, you're not a human being. Because, again, folks, human beings, American citizens, can vote, and their vote counts. I don't care if you write in Daffy Duck. I don't care if you write in Mickey Mouse. I don't care if you put in Trump or RFK or the Zulu Nation or Wakanda. It doesn't really matter. Whatever you put in, it counts. And it's a vote. And they're telling you, you don't even have the right to put in Daffy Duck. You are so inconsequential. You are such a zero. Democrats are telling their fellow Democrats, you are so meaningless that even if you wrote Daffy Duck, it wouldn't matter. Even if you vote for the guy they want, you don't matter. They're throwing you away. Even if you are a diehard Democrat who is bleeding blue and are screaming, you donated the maximum amount to Joe Biden. You've been holding up a sign in sub-zero weather in a snowstorm, telling everybody that Joe Biden has done everything great. You've tried to convince all your friends and neighbors, and the DNC, for all of your absolute dedication and commitment, have just said, screw you, you're meaningless. Walk away. We don't care about you.
Well,
And this is their party.
Dal asks, have they made it so he's not on the primary ballot by judicial action, or is he not on the ballot because DNC right now has no contest for primary candidates? They do have contests for primary candidates. They are literally telling New Hampshire that because they want South Carolina to be the first primary in the nation, that New Hampshire's primary doesn't count. It's meaningless.
They don't like New Hampshire. They are basically having a tantrum over New Hampshire not listening to the DNC, not doing what they were told. And because they didn't listen, because they didn't obey, they're getting slapped, otherwise known as a bitch slap. And
now,
that's
New Hampshire state law requires it to have the first primary in the nation. That is by state law in New Hampshire. And because of that, the DNC is saying that New Hampshire's votes don't count, that
Frank,
they are meaningless.
Frank, is that voter nullification? Am I wrong? Am I wrong in calling it that?
No, I wouldn't think so.
Go ahead.
Eliminating a vote or eliminating a candidate from the vote or eliminating a party from the vote to get rid of the candidate, whichever way you want to do it, it's voter nullification. I don't understand why. Well, Liz, I do understand why. Why do I start sentences with that when I know the answer? I know the frigging answer. We all know the answer already. Why do people do that? We know why they do that. They can't win unless they do what they're doing. And if they can't cheat one way because we are watching them because we know how they cheated the last time, they're going to try and find some other way around it. Try and pull some bullshit string and see what they can get away with. I just don't understand why all the leftists that claim to be
pro-democracy,
absolutionists, absolutists, they're so concerned about the one person, one vote. We need democracy, the vote, the right of the people, the will of the people. And it's like, oh, you want to take people off the ballot? That's fine. You want to eliminate states from the vote? That's fine. You want to get rid of the electoral college? That's fine. Everything is whatever you want to do is fine.
But
to mess
don't
with
you
the
know,
vote.
according to Democrats, this vote is to save democracy, even though they are doing everything in their power to undermine it.
I got two things to say.
Yeah.
I saw a report this week that said Biden is destroying democracy to save democracy.
Okay. That's an oxymoron.
Yeah. Well, we're not built as a democracy. We were built as a republic.
Well, that too.
And that's the biggest thing I think that people have forgotten. One, because it's not being taught. And two, they use the term democracy
Well,
not as it was meant to be used.
and the thing is people don't understand what a republic actually is.
Well, let's forget about that. In this case, for just this moment, for everyone who is watching this, please clip this part of the video of this live stream. I want you to share this with every Democrat and ask them, why are you a Democrat? Your own party has told you you are non-existent. You're not a human being. You're not an American citizen. It's not that you're not voting. You're voting. And they told you, yeah, and we're going to burn it in the trash. It's non-existent. It doesn't matter. I can't imagine why anyone in New Hampshire, after being told that the DNC, their party, is going to take their vote, wipe their ass with it, and throw it out. Why would you still be a Democrat? Why? They have just told you how little they value you. It's got nothing to do with me being a conservative Republican, has nothing to do with anyone's values here. It has to do with democracy and authoritarianism. And this is the most authoritarian thing that I have seen in an election in America. I mean, if you told me this was happening in Uganda, I'd tell you, yeah, okay, I expect that. You told me it was somewhere in South America, I'd tell you, that's a normal day. That's a normal election for them. But we're talking about America. And they have literally said, yeah, all those party members, it's not even like they're doing it to another party. They're doing it to their own people. How can you cannot say that America, you're standing up for freedom, that we're standing up for rights. I don't care what you want to say. You can't say any of that and say, and by the way, I am perfectly happy with them telling you that you are subhuman. You are a non-entity. You're not a citizen. You're not even a legal alien. You don't exist.
Well, leftists have had absolutely no problem telling illegal aliens what they think of them, telling blacks what they think of them, telling Latinos what they think of them. They say it in plain sight, in plain English. They just use it as political speak behind the mask, and and it just goes right over everybody's head. Over everybody's head. But if you're black, you don't need to get ID because you're not smart enough to get ID to go vote. That's why you're underprivileged. You're not educated. You don't have the wherewithal to find the DMV to go get some ID to vote. So we're going to fight against voter ID. I don't know a single black person in America that don't have ID.
Well, by the way, what you just said, Frank, okay, for the public who are watching this, you are paraphrasing 3 town halls and events by Joe Biden in 2019, 2020, and 2021, respectively. You are actually quoting his statements. He said everything you just mentioned. Those are Biden's statements.
Right.
Anyone who disagrees, look it up.
It's not my words. These are the messages that they tell you. And for some reason or another, the media doesn't call them out for what it is. Who's going to pick our fruit? Who's going to pick our crops? Who's going to clean our hotel rooms? Who's going to mow our lawns? Who's going to trim our hedges? Who's going to watch our children? Because that's all an immigrant to the United States from South America can aspire to be. That's all they can aspire to be. That's why we need the border open, because we need somebody to pick lettuce and strawberries and avocados and everything else, because that's all you're qualified for. That is the extent of your American dream. So that's why we want you here. We don't want you here to be doctors or lawyers or anything else. We want cheap labor. We want it fast. We want it replaceable.
And they want to remove the Statue of Liberty.
Well, before you get to that, I want to say what my second thing was, going back to voter suppression.
Go ahead.
Did you guys see, I don't remember what state it was. I'm pretty sure it was a Democratic state, but they want to get to where libertarians can't be on the primary.
Oh, well, that's pretty much every one of them.
Yeah.
That's almost every state.
Yeah, they
That's like New
every
York.
state
They
wants to eliminate
Libertarians are not in the primary in New York.
Mm.
They were 1 year.
And then they changed the
every
rules.
state wants to
Yep.
get down to they want to have the Republican Party, but they want to eliminate the Conservative Party, the Libertarian Party, but they want to have it like this: Republican, Democrat, Liberal, Workers' Party of America, Green Party, Socialist of America. So they want like 10 different distinctions of how to break down leftivism, but only one banner onto which anyone conservative can run. And they
Now-
want to eliminate all the rest of those because they understand that if you can eliminate as many of those parties, you're also eliminating a certain amount of advertising, political action committees, super PACs, and all the rest of that. And you're also eliminating, like, you may have the Conservative Party in New York not nominate the Republican nominee for president. They might nominate two different complete people because you might have a leftist Republican that wants to run, and the Conservative Party is not going to back him. But the Democrats don't care about that. They just want to have the Republican Party, and all flavors of Republican get funneled into one cup or one basket, a big basket of deplorables. That's what they want us to do. Put us into one big basket, but they can have every other flavor of the month over there. That's what they want to do. They want to bring as much appeal as possible for them, as little appeal as possible for us.
James made a comment here. Lobbyists are the problem. Make it illegal. Crowdfunding democracy instead. I would kind of agree with you, James, except for one issue. Act Blue.
Act Blue, for people who don't know, is a bundler. They bundle money. Basically, they collect money from everyone, including criminals. They have literally accepted money from embezzlers. This is going back to Henry Lou and Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign. Bundled the money for her through Act Blue, gave it to her, and she never gave the money back. So they collect all this money from all these sources, and then they distribute it to Democrats across the nation.
Oh, and we have the one that got busted after the 2020 election, wasn't it? XF or X.
Yeah, they basically clean money.
It's also a means for people to get around the campaign finance laws.
Mm-hmm.
Because individuals are allowed, I think it's up to $5,000 that they can contribute to a campaign.
2,600 per person, 5,000 per couple.
Mm-hmm.
If you go through Act Blue, you can literally donate as much as you want. Okay.
Well, and they found,
that,
and I think the biggest thing to point out too wasn't it? I believe it was on Act Blue that they found that people's names were on there that didn't even donate to them.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
it was
Act Blue is one of the most corrupt super PACs there is. Now, Democrats are calling for Citizens United to be the ruling on Citizens United to be overturned.
Mm-hmm.
They don't understand what that means. They really don't, because they're saying that, or they are primarily focused on corporations. But if you actually read the Citizens United ruling, it says organizations have free speech to support candidates as they see fit. Okay. If you overturn Citizens United, you now make it illegal for unions to be able to support candidates. You make it illegal for any type of association to be able to support candidates.
Mm-hmm.
You make it illegal for super PACs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you literally make it illegal for any type of organization to be able to support any type of political activity. regardless of what it is.
Yeah, I get you. They are counting on so many of these issues. Like, they don't expect the average person in New Hampshire to see the news. Notice, this isn't national news. This isn't a national conversation. It's not even a New Hampshire conversation. This is something they put out to let it die. It's a story that's supposed to just poof, poof, disappear in the wind, and people will vote and not realize their vote was thrown in the toilet. And no one's supposed to think that, oh, so the DNC is picking and choosing which votes they like, just like they pick and choose their candidates. Remember, we see them do this. This is essentially the same thing they did to Bernie Sanders. This is essentially what they were doing in the Hillary in 2016. We've seen this also in 2020, where they're basically, I mean, you can call it, the only thing I'm stumbling over is, sadly, the censorship of YouTube, that if I said it honestly with the clear words that everyone would understand, will get deleted. So I'm trying to work around that. Please bear with me, folks. I'm trying to find the way to say they are literally, they're counting on the fact that you are too dumb, the audience, the American public, are too dumb to either look this up and verify that it's coming from a credible news source, which it has, that this is exactly what the DNC is saying, and that you're going to do anything about it. They think you're just going to just let it go. That on so many of these issues, they just expect, whether it's the budget, UBI, whether it's this, whether it's military action in the Middle East, they just expect you to just go, okay, and just do what you're told. It's really sad.
User, this is kind of a little bit off topic, but I want to address this real quick. Okay. The reason for this past certification and background check for sheriffs in Washington State, that is because Washington State, when it passed ballot initiative 1639, the vast majority of sheriffs across the state refused to enforce I-1639. And that is why they are doing this. Most of those sheriffs that refused to enforce I-1639 also got reelected multiple times after that election was held.
Yeah, these are some crazy things that are happening. I call all of this is all under the umbrella of 2024 fortification. If you see my shows, you've been seeing me talk about this for years now. The umbrella, this is all under it. It's really terrifying. And so, Jan, I think you didn't say what's part 2.
No, I said my part 2.
Oh, you did. That's right. Yeah. Sorry, I'm researching, I'm listening, and I'm writing as we speak.
Okay. I was going to tell Michael to go back to the Statue of Liberty thing that we were.
Yes, we're getting to that now.
We were talking about before going live.
That's what we meant to go
to. Frank had touched on immigration and so forth. A Democrat,
I think
actually
I figured out.
submitted a law to have the Statue of Liberty removed because he doesn't agree with immigration legislation that the Republicans are trying to pass.
I think I figured out why it's racist. Because the Statue of Liberty stands for bringing in people legally.
Yeah.
They can't be that dumb. Really? That legal immigration is that's the fine line. That's the camel's back.
That could be the only thing it can be.
Look, here's the bottom line with this stellar intellect that decided he wants to write legislation to remove the Statue of Liberty because for some reason or another, he believes that the Statue of Liberty represents American policy as far as it comes to immigration. All right.
It was Maxwell Frost, representative in Florida.
All right. Maxwell Frost, this
gentleman
buffoon
right here.
this buffoon who has no idea that the United States federal government has absolutely zero to do with the Statue of Liberty, other than it being now classified as being part of a national park, where the federal government helps maintain Liberty Island. You have Parks Department police, Parks Department officers there. But the federal government had nothing to do with the acquisition of the statue. It had nothing to do with the building of the foundation that the statue sits upon. It had nothing to do with the shipping of it over here. Nothing to do with the poem that's on it. It had nothing to do with anything. And for this moron to be able to, oh, we got to get rid of the statue because it doesn't represent American immigration anymore. Shut up, you moron. You overprivileged, overexceeded your own possible outcome in life, moron. Shut up. You don't represent anybody. You're an idiot. Go look at the history of the Statue of Liberty, for God's sake. I bet you've never been set foot on Liberty Island to begin with. Oh, for the love of God. Somebody should,
Hey,
his mother really needed to smack him around a lot when he was a kid, or at least should have.
this is the left. You can never be progressive enough. There is nothing, there is no symbol that they can accept that will be good enough, because it's always a march to the left. It is always give more, give more. Every symbol that isn't their current symbol, then it's always wrong. It's always evil. It has to be, we have to tear down the Statue of Liberty and put up a statue of George Floyd until we get someone better and the next talking point, and then he'll be taken down, put up someone else. It's always worse. Statue of Liberty, gift from France, symbolizing American freedom, the opportunity in a classless society to achieve whatever you want based on your own merit, meritocracy, and the opportunity to migrate legally, to go from your country to America and have these opportunities. Yeah, that's just a definition of racism there. I mean, it's not even like he's saying, it would be one thing to say, gee, well, America, you want to reform the immigration laws. Okay, you can talk about changing the quotas, the different percentages from different countries in the world, but there are percentages from the world. We take people in from the world. You may want more people from certain parts of the world. We already take them in. You can't say it's racist to have an immigration policy. That's stupid.
And basically, they're not saying that asylum seekers can't come to the United States. It's saying that asylum seekers are to stop at the first country that they come to seek asylum,
Which
and not straight to the United States.
Which is international law.
Right.
And this is an argument that Germany and France, Italy is screaming about this right now. I mean, Sweden is freaking out about this right now. Same thing, same argument.
Pretty much every country in the world is, except the United States is saying, hey, come on in. We don't care where you are.
Now, if you ever see the way Poland enforces their immigration at their wall,
they're good.
Border, they have their fence, they have their barbed wire, they have their checkpoints, they have their entry points, because you can go into Poland. You know, they want you checking in at the door, you know, when you show up. But they have And they have every 50 yards, they have water cannons. And if you try getting up over their fence, they blast you back over the wall.
Here's the thing. There's a reason why international law is written that way. That's because so no single country is overwhelmed with refugees or asylum seekers. Okay? If every asylum seeker went to a single country, then it would just be way overwhelming for that country. It'd be too much for them.
It's too much for us.
Well, that's just it. Okay. But yet the Democrats are doubling down on this.
Well, immigration is if you try to question these illegal immigration activists, these are also the same people who are $25 minimum wage activists.
Mhm.
Yeah, living
Okay.
wage.
Right. They're the minimum wage activists. They're the same people.
Living wage. They call it living wage.
But
They're
when you
also the
ask
same
them the
people that are-
question, but when you ask them the question, if more is better, why have a limit? And if you want to have a limit, what's that limit going to be? If you say, well, $25 an hour helps the economy, then why not pay everybody $100 an hour as the minimum wage?
Hell,
Why stop at
there?
100?
$1 billion
Why stop
an
at
hour.
Yeah, let's everybody gets $1 billion a week paycheck to start, because they don't have a limit, because the argument they think is for better, more is better. And then when you look at the same argument for the illegal immigration activists, well, how many do you think we should allow in? What's a number? They don't want to give you a number. All they tell you is when we need more so we can sustain the economy.
They do give a number for
a number.
They
And
do
as
give
far
a
as
they
and
do
when-
give
when
a
you
number,
question-
Frank, for legal immigration, 125,000 a year.
And then don't forget the word legal. They don't care about the word legal. Doesn't matter. When you press them on the issue, they have the same responses when it
Well,
comes to pay.
Yeah, there is
no
a limit
limit
on documented immigrants,
Well,
but
they
there
don't.
is no limit. It's infinite for undocumented.
Well, there's no limit for either, because what they want is no border. They think that every person in the world is entitled to come to the United States because these are globalists. They don't believe in the American Constitution. They don't believe in American law. They believe that we should all be governed by global law, and that everyone in the, have you seen this? No person is illegal.
Oh yeah, I've heard that
That's
stupidity.
the phrase. Because they think that somebody in Botswana, somebody in Belgrade, somebody in Belgium, somebody in a barrio in Mexico all have the same exact right to be here, and they should have the same rights even if they aren't here. Not American rights, global rights. Because they don't want you to have American rights, because half of the rights that we enjoy here as Americans, they don't want us to have anyway. They don't want us to have free speech. They don't want us to have the right to have a gun. They don't want us to have the ability to have the presumption of innocence. They don't want a jury by trial. They don't want anything that has to do with American rights. They want to adopt the UN Charter of Rights. So they have no limit. They don't care about the border because they need to water down the American population so badly that America no longer exists. That's their bottom line. They want one omnipresent government to encompass all nations, so that we all are exactly the same, and then we'll finally have our equity.
Yeah, that's called a robot. And it's when everyone has nothing, then everyone is equal. Not quite the best thing you could possibly do. And look at what they do when they're involved. I mean, look at this crazy crap. This is because that kind of governance is so weak, because that you have leaders that are jellyfish that follow these ideas that when you look at it, look at what's happening now with the Houthis. 6 times we have attacked the Houthi rebels. By the way, the effectiveness is about 10%, 10 to 20%. That's how much we've taken down each time in these strikes. We're hitting about 10 to 20% of the Houthi rebels' capability. We're bombing Yemen again. We did that under Obama, except he used drones. Now we're using our Navy to do it. Same impact. We're not stopping
but
them.
it's illegal, isn't it, Mike?
Well, here's the thing about the legality. Because the reason why Obama got away with it is the same reason why Biden's getting away with it. Because War Powers Act, you have 60 days to have this action before he has to ask Congress for the permission to continue. So by War Powers Act, he has the right to continue to do this. It is legal. It's the same reason that Obama was using drones everywhere. He was using drones to bomb people in Pakistan, to bomb them in Yemen, in Iraq. No one beat Obama
And
as the
actually, all
drone
you have
king.
to do is tie it to the war on terror, which is a never-ending war. And he's already got the authorization.
Yeah. So, and they're in the process of doing exactly that because the Houthi rebels are terrorists. They aren't Yemen, the government of Yemen. They're terrorists. We've been fighting against them for a decade. They are backed by Iran. And here's the common thing. Iran backs Hamas that continue to hold American hostages. Iran backs Hezbollah that have been attacking both Israel and American soldiers in Syria. Iran backs the Houthis that are attacking American ships, both military and commercial, and all of our allies. Do you notice there's a theme in this that seems to keep circling around, that isn't being talked about, that isn't being addressed, because Iran is now also attacking Pakistan. They're attacking the United States. Gee, is there a central theme here that a strong president might want to speak about? Except we're not, or do something about it, but we're not. And here's the thing that gets me. And this is, you want to know why the Houthi rebels aren't going to stop? There's a couple of reasons, real simple. The first one is Biden gave them the opportunity. They don't fear Biden because on day 1, 2021, Joe Biden, the Houthi rebels were recognized by the United States government as terrorists. Joe Biden comes in. He took them off the terrorist list, which means the United States government gave them money, humanitarian aid, which they bought bombs, rockets, missiles that they're using to attack us with right now. When they started attacking us. Now let's fast forward a little bit to today. Let's go back 3 months ago, November. The Houthi rebels started attacking the United States. They started attacking our ships, our military ships, our cargo ships 3 months ago. And it took 3 months before Joe Biden started to attack back. And even that is half-hearted. Again, we've only knocked out 25, maybe 30% of their capability to continue to fight. As we see.
Pause you for a little bit, Mike, and look at what Agent Black's saying in the chat.
Make your themes.
Go up.
He's started off.
I'm advocating genocide.
He started off. Okay, innocent people should not be killed. So, a 4-year-old kid is a terrorist.
A 4-year-old. Well, a 4-year-old kid doesn't have the knowledge and understanding to decide whether or not they're a terrorist. That's what they did in Vietnam. They used to pack the kids with plastique, send them over to the American soldiers in Vietnam because the Americans would give them candy, and then they'd set off the kids. The kids weren't a terrorist. They didn't know. We've seen that happen in the Middle East on a regular basis, that many of the Al-Qaeda, ISIS, have done that, where they strap kids with bombs and the kids don't know any different. They don't know what it is, and they send them off and then they detonate them. So no, I wouldn't say a 4-year-old isn't a terrorist. But the
Well,
Houthi rebels
I
are.
think I get what he's getting at, and
Collateral damage?
He doesn't want any deaths.
No one does, but that's now a reality of the world.
My thing is if they are going to be pulling these strikes that they are doing, they need to make sure of what their targets are.
Yes.
And they need to make damn sure of what their targets are.
And that's
I think at the same
and they
time,
need to limit collateral damage to 0 if at all possible.
but I think at the
Now,
same
I
time,
know certain organizations make that impossible.
that's what I was
But
going
they
to say.
need
I
to-
think that we need to understand that most of these terrorist groups, when they attack, where do they attack from? The public sector. They use the public to hide.
No, yeah, they go to the schools, they go to hospitals, they go to where the public is, and they fire from there, which is, again, this is an Iranian tactic that they have taught to Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthi rebels, among others.
And it's been a tactic of terrorists for many, many years.
Yeah.
Or decades, actually centuries. So, and if I'm not mistaken, Agent Black's from England, right?
Yeah, he's from the UK. And let me address this. I do want to mention, I understand. I don't want to see collateral damage. I don't. And I don't even want this. I don't want us to. We're slipping into a war. This is the second regional war of 3 that I've been afraid of. I don't want us to do this. I think a strong leader wouldn't need us to. We wouldn't be in this situation, except the errors have compounded from the Biden administration that have caused us to be here. And they're no longer afraid because they have seen the mistakes that enabled them to do what they're doing today.
Now, I want to address something that user has been banned for naughty words.
Yeah.
Commented. Was Hiroshima needed? Did Hiroshima need to happen?
Yes and no.
In the balance of things, there are a lot of historians that say, yes, it did need to happen, because if it didn't, the cost in lives, and many of those lives being civilian lives, would have been even larger if Hiroshima didn't happen. They say that the Nagasaki and Hiroshima bombings actually ended the war by at least 4 years. And if they would have continued to do the firebombing that was being waged at that time, the cost in civilian lives would have been
half the nation.
Yeah, exponentially greater.
Yeah, I've heard reports say they were calculating that to take Japan without the nukes would have cost half of the lives of the Japanese people.
And that is another good point. The Soviets would have came in, and that is another thing that they were trying to prevent from happening, was the Soviets getting involved. Even though the Soviets were allies of ours at the time, they were not a trusted ally. In fact, there were a lot of things going on behind the scenes with the Soviets that it's really surprising that they were our allies. And basically the only reason why they were our allies was because of Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
And that is because Nazi Germany broke their pact that they had with the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
What you playing with over there, Frank?
Just some optics.
New optics.
Yeah. You know, this is a much bigger discussion, but it's the point is understanding the consequences. And yes, there is a question about accountability. Yes, there's a very big question about where they're attacking, which obviously isn't where they should be, because look at their effectiveness rate is so low. So there's a problem. But that goes back to, well, we have an inept government. We didn't even know. Maybe if we had a defense secretary that we knew was on the job, or at least if he wasn't, his assistant was on the job, if somebody was on the job in the planning of this, maybe we would have an effective rate and we wouldn't be doing this 6 times out of the last 10 days.
Right.
Maybe
Well,
if we had, go ahead, Frank.
real quick, just before, as far as our defense secretary is concerned, yeah, the guy should really lose his job for not letting anybody know what the hell was going on or anything like that. But on a personal note, I wish the man a speedy and healthy recovery.
Yeah. I don't.
I want the man to be happy and healthy and I want him to do his job the way the job is supposed to be. But if he's not going to do the job the way it's supposed to be, he needs to be fired. And when he goes home, he needs to recuperate fully and then be healthy. We don't wish the man well. We don't wish the man ill at all.
No.
Somebody who's dealt with that stuff. I want to make. That was just my little personal caveat.
No. I get that. And I would never wish cancer on anyone. I want him to have a full recovery. My question isn't that he's getting the help. Fantastic. I'm glad that he's got the benefits from the government. He's got the top-notch best. Trust me, he's not using Obamacare. He's got real health care. Fantastic.
He's not using the VA.
Yeah, he's not using the VA either. So I want him to use access, and I'm glad he has access to the top best medical procedures he can. I hope it works for him. I'm perfectly fine with him getting healthy. Would never stop him from that. But that doesn't also at the same time, the nation is suffering from the way he went about that. There's a reason why we have procedures which are explicit and clear. And only it's because the government is so inept that all of those procedures, which are well documented, well thought out, because people anticipated this happening, they're all violated. Nothing got done. That's an inept, inefficient government. And the rest of the world is seeing it and taking advantage of it. They knew this. They've been watching it for 3 years. Everything that Biden's been doing has been leading to this. These aren't gut reactions from the Houthis or Iran, Hezbollah or Hamas, Russia or China. None of them are doing this off their hip, shooting off their hip. They planned this. They have been looking at us and thinking about it. Hamas planned for years with the anticipation that the inept, ineffective government was going to do this. And they're watching. Biden is so focused on next election, I need to look good, that he is letting everything else fall and fail. He is violating. He's so obsessed with next election, that he's willing to break America, break our laws continuously. And he's obsessed with nothing but next election. Look at everything that's falling apart around us that we're talking about on the show. And we've got the media, whether it's social media or mainstream media, are trying to stop us from talking about it. Because if we talk about it and we can come down to the commonality of, okay, yeah, that was inept, let's fix it. Because first part of fixing something is to recognize it's broken. And they're like, no, don't tell anyone it's broken, because they're worried about politics and power. They're not worried about the Constitution. They're not worried about freedom.
Now, honestly, our government right now reminds me of Keystone Cops.
Well, they are, yeah.
Except the Keystone Cops weren't a malicious group of incompetent bastards. They were just incompetent.
Well, you guys heard John Kerry stepping down as our climate czar, right?
Who?
John Kerry.
Oh,
yeah,
Kerry?
He wants to concentrate on helping Sleepy Joe, the kid sniffing pedo, get reelected. He tells the World Economic Forum, "I don't want you to get nervous. I'm not disappearing. I'm just changing my roles. I'll still be here to try and be your puppet to America."
Like anyone cared. No one cared. He's done nothing effective. The only thing he's been doing is he was giving away American secrets to Iran. That's documented.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
All right. All right. Quick note. M&M's peanut were my two favorite M&M's.
Yeah, those are good ones. M&M peanuts in particular.
They came out with M&M peanut butter.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's good. It's real good.
Not quite as I still like Reese's Pieces better. It's got a little bit more of a proportion of peanut butter to chocolate. Okay, so the M&M's peanut butter, I'm kind of not with it yet. However, M&M's caramel.
Caramel.
Oh, yeah,
gonna
they
ask
stand
you
out.
about that caramel yet.
If you
Haven't
find the blue bag, snatch that bad boy up. M&M's caramel. Holy crap, these things are awesome.
Really?
I had, I put, just for the show, I put like 20 in a little bag so I can come up to the armory and do the show. So I otherwise I'll eat the whole friggin' thing. News of the absurd for the week.
Beyond what
Last
we've talked
week-
about.
Can we get any more absurd?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to be a lot more specific than that.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know if you guys saw the what the hell is it? The King the hell is this? The King Arthur Baking Company decides that it's going to run a contest with a $10,000 prize to people that come up with the best baked goods. Caucasians excluded.
What? Oh, it's another one of those.
Any Caucasoidal individual is excluded. It's only for people of color. You have to be black, Latinx. How do they say it now?
Latinx.
Latinx, I don't know.
Don't worry.
Asian.
No one who's Hispanic knows what that is either.
No, and they don't want to know what it is either.
No, it's insulting.
Yeah, it's very insulting. What the hell else is it? Pacific Islanders, people from the Himalayas, the people from Easter Island. Everybody is allowed to participate in the King Arthur Baking Contest unless you're Caucasian. Now, you would think that being that they're flying under this banner, that some of the alphabet corps would be welcome in that thing. And from what I understand, they are. Except Jan, unfortunately.
I'm 1% black, so they gotta accept me.
Oh, so you have the one drop of coffee.
Yeah.
Premise there.
My sister did a one of those tests years ago, the DNA. We come back 1% black. So
Hey,
you're more black than Elizabeth Warren is Pocahontas.
exactly.
Well, I'm Sicilian. That kind of speaks for itself. All right,
the Moors.
Maybe I should try to enter this baking contest.
Well, you should see what you do. Well, I'll send you a link for it. Now, if that wasn't absurd enough, now this company, which is a Vermont-based company, and anytime you see a company that's Vermont-based, you could automatically know that you're going to be dealing with, the cousins of Bernie Sanders. They're all going to be of that cult. However, what I didn't anticipate was getting the same treatment from Chevrolet. Yes, Chevrolet. Like a rock. Yeah, Chevrolet. The Chevy Corporation.
Yeah.
Part of General Motors, the Chevy brand of it. I have in my driveway, you guys may have seen the photos. I have a restored, it's not even an antique, but it's over 30 years old. I have an old Chevy OBS that I bought a few years ago, that when I had COVID last year, rather than sitting in the house dying, I decided to go outside, sand the truck down to bare metal, and restore it and repaint it and do the whole thing. So everybody loves the way my truck looks.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, my transmission blew out. Had the motor done, restored the truck, and then my transmission blew out. So that's the way it goes. But it's still sitting out there until next week. I got to send it out to get it restored, to get it fixed. But I saw this thing, and this advertisement on Facebook said they're looking for candidates for a Chevy commercial. And in the image is a picture of my truck, my style body truck. And according to the way it looked, it was like, oh, they're going to do like one of those retro commercials. And they're looking for, people who have older trucks that are in nice condition. So I said, let me click the link. And if it's what I think it is, I'll send a picture of my truck and see what it is. So I clicked the link and I said, well, let me go see what this thing looks like. And they're looking for people to appear in a commercial. This is from the casting director's office. And this is what friggin' blew my mind. Now, I can understand if you want an ethnic-centric commercial for a specific reason. You're trying to appeal to a certain demographic. I understand that. All right. I understand
That happens.
All right. But here's the casting information of what they're looking for. Asian men and women between 35 and 45. Black men between 35 and 45. Ethnically ambiguous boys and girls between 9 and 11. Ethnically ambiguous men 35 to 45. Ethnically ambiguous women 35 to 45. Latinx boys, Latinx men, and then just women. So, all right, so they want women as part of the commercial. Apparently, they know what a woman is. They just don't know what color they want them to be. So they just said, women, doesn't matter what color you are, we want you as a part of the commercial. But they want Asian men, black men, Latino boys. What the hell is an ethnically ambiguous person?
They're not white, I'll tell you that.
Well, no, well, you see, that's the whole thing. It's like you could say, this is the way of saying we need Caucasians for the commercial, but we don't want to hire Caucasians. Or we don't want to say Caucasians.
No, so they can't be sued for not hiring Caucasians. Well, you're ethnically ambiguous.
Right. So now it's not only bad enough, it's not only that bad now that if you're a white guy, you're not even a white guy anymore. You're just ambiguous. It doesn't matter. Well, which white guy are you? Are you the Irish white guy or the Italian white guy, the Swedish white guy, the German? It doesn't matter. You're just friggin' ambiguous. It doesn't matter what your heritage is anymore. You're just ambiguous. So you can't even now, look at someone and identify and say, well, I'm an Italian American. No, you're an ambiguous American. I'm a German American. No, you're ambiguous. But if you're Asian American, African American, Latin American, that's all fine. You can identify down to to the province in the country that your great-great-grandfather came from as that kind of American. But if you're a Caucasian in America now, you're just ambiguous.
I wonder, can we start a new heading? Can we say we're American?
Well, I should be able to as being part native. I should be able to say I'm an American.
Well, that's my. I mean, if everybody can have a title and we're just Caucasian, and so it doesn't benefit anything, why can't we be? I'm an American.
It just struck me as the height of absurdity, to where it's gotten to the point where you have to say, well, you're ambiguous. You're ambiguous. It doesn't matter what you are. You're just ambiguous. You don't matter anymore. You don't matter.
Well, they've been doing that. They've been telling us as white people we don't matter for years now. I mean, you know, God forbid you guys are misogynist men, because that's a bad thing to be here in America. God forbid you stand up and speak up for women and other people's rights, because you're just bad for that.
You know why? Because you guys don't have a nation. Did you know being black is a nationality? To be black is your nationality.
Mhm.
The nation of black. And here's the how can you say that? You're gonna love this. This is the second year in a row that the NFL has recognized that black is a country. Black is a nationality. Because on the Super Bowl 58, the NFL is going to have the black national anthem. Not the US anthem, which will be coming there too. So the national anthem, the United States national anthem, will be sung, and the black national anthem. Therefore, black is a country. Black is a nationality. And it has a anthem. And it will be sung at the Super Bowl. Again, 2 years in a row. That sets precedence. This is almost a legal declaration of nationality, of nationhood. It has been recognized and is televised worldwide with tens of millions of witnesses, all acknowledging black is a nation. Just like Africa is a country. It's the same kind of brilliance and genius. And that's why you can't be just an American because you don't have a anthem for that. It's not a nation. It's not recognized. But black is. It is hyper insanely stupid and racist and disgusting. I hate this stuff. I hate all this stuff.
If you were born in America, you're an American of whatever descent. For them to put whatever the descent is in front of it, I knew as soon as they started doing it decades ago, when they started the African American thing, that it was going to cause a divide. Because go ahead.
African American, I get it. It was the evolution away from, you went from Negro to black, and that was the next evolution.
Exactly, but it should have been American of African descent.
Well, what it should be is just American.
Are. If we're born in America, we're American first. Our descent comes second.
No, all right. Well, let me put an end to the whole hyphenated bullshit to begin with.
Yeah.
Where did humanity on Earth begin?
Depends on who you ask. Mediterranean, Africa, Fertile Crescent.
The cradle of life is universally accepted, at least with a plurality of people from both the biological and theological sides of the argument, all believe that human life on Earth originated somewhere in Africa.
Yeah.
Okay.
Northern Africa, most likely. Yeah.
Right. That means every one of us, at some point or another, when we can break down our genetic code, can trace it all the way to hell back to the same friggin' place. We're all Africans by the same token. We're all African. We're all human. The whole argument of race is bullshit. The only difference between the people is a level of melanin. And the only difference in the people is that when people lived in a certain area for a certain period of time, they adapted to their environment by having certain features be more or less pronounced, and certain features helped them adapt or not adapt. And those that couldn't adapt found different areas. And we all sprouted from the same friggin' tree, and we're all leaves flying in the fucking wind.
Well,
all of this hyphenated bullshit has got to friggin' stop. I said a while ago, when I was a kid, My father used to take me to the police station with him, and when we were at the police station, there was a shooting. 2 cops in Lower Manhattan got assassinated. They got picked off because by some drug dealers. It was a bad thing, really bad thing. They both got murdered on a street corner, and both their bodies lay in the gutter, right on the corner. And after the whole thing was over and everything else like that, I was in the precinct with my father. My father rode the desk most of the day there. He was a sergeant there. My father put me in a police car, and I couldn't have been more than 5 or 6 years old at the time. And he drove over to where it was at. He had to do a change of shift thing and whatever. And he said, I was at the police station with him. He brought me with him, put me in the car, brought his paperwork over there, and he took me by the hand and he took me over. And all you could see was where the 2 police officers gave their lives, and you could see the blood pooled in the street. And all the blood that pooled in the street all went down into the friggin' sewer drain. And my father asked me, he says, one officer was black and one was white. Do you know whose blood is whose?
Mm-hmm.
My father made the point to me when I was a kid. My father's partner on Benjamin Solomon was from Jamaica. Black as the ace of spades, cooler than an ice cube. That was my Uncle Benjamin. My Uncle Benny was awesome. It didn't friggin' matter. It didn't matter. It shouldn't matter. Yes, and all of this crap that everybody keeps trying to do, that hyphen is a division mark. That's all it is. It's just meant to keep people from seeing the same light and enjoying the same sunshine. Until we start to realize that we all bleed the same friggin' color. It's just going to completely screw everything up. People got to wake the fuck up to it and realize that there's a lot more of us that want to unite the people than there are the ones that want to divide us. It's just the people that want to divide us are the ones that have the power to do so. But we have the power to reject it.
That's why I'm bringing it up, because we need to. This is ridiculous. It is on its face, and by its definition and by its action, it is antithetical to a society, to humanity.
Well, I have a question for Agent. Agent, you live in the UK. Do they do these hyphenations in your country?
Yes, they do. As I'm aware, they do. As I'm aware, because I've had some conversations, but the left does. It's kind of like here, as in my conversations with several people overseas. An agent will correct me if I'm wrong about this, but the left does it, and everyone else is like, Frank, me, you, Mike, we don't care.
No, we don't. And honestly, the vast majority of Americans don't care. They will look more at your character than they do anything else.
I saw an ad, not an ad, so I was watching a little news excerpt, and it had some black guy from Canada, and he was visiting in New York, and apparently some news crew was out there doing something. There was some sort of story about something, and they happened to come across this one black guy from Canada.
Yeah, there aren't a whole lot, but okay.
And they didn't realize that the guy's Canadian, but he's like ending every sentence with A.
Yeah.
You know?
Dead giveaway.
A. And at some point this is, well, where are you from? And he's like, he's from Ontario. He's like, oh, well, there's not a lot of African Americans living in Ontario. He says, yeah, I guess you're right, eh? And he's like, well, what is it like being an African American in Ontario? Cool. And he's like, I'm Canadian. But you're African American.
No,
I'm Canadian. But you're an African American. What? The media is so used to pounding and pounding and pounding that African American, that if a guy comes over from Nigeria,
they would call him African American.
They're going to call him an African American,
and he'll be insulted.
This reporter couldn't extract herself from the conversation long enough to realize the guy is not even an American, period. He's Canadian. He's got a Toronto Maple Leaf shirt on, and he's saying A at the end of every freaking sentence. It's July, and the guy's freezing. He's Canadian.
We actually we actually talked about Millie's speech at the WEF early in the episode.
Yeah.
Well,
But,
I just want to point out, I asked Agent that question because it kind of, if you notice where they've got to break you down to what country your ancestors come from. I mean, that doesn't happen in every country. Every country isn't out there going.
Well, pretty soon they're going to try to break us down according to our DNA. Okay.
Yeah.
You have so many G markers in your DNA. You have too many T markers in your DNA.
Okay, does that mean I get to pick which marker I get to choose? Because I have I have, which most of us do. We have about 20 markers, if not more.
Yeah.
Because part of my part on one side, my family originated from Spain. On the other side, it originated from the UK. Which side do I get to pick?
You don't get to pick any of that.
Yeah, because you're both colonizers.
No. DNA markers, okay, I think it's ABGT. I'm probably wrong on those letterings, but those are the actual markers in your DNA, not your nationality or any of that stuff.
Yeah, but
they will at some point, I'm sure they will try to separate us and box us and categorize us based upon the number of various DNA markers that we have.
it is the natural evolution of equity. Equity eternally divides group into smaller and smaller groups and subcategories within every category so that they can rank them, so they can arbitrarily decide that some group is more important than another.
More of a victim than another.
There's always another victim. There's always a smaller group. They always have to be prioritized. They always need the government to do it for them because you're, of course, not human. And, you can't have agency for yourself. And therefore, you need the power of the government as dictated by a group of elites you've never seen that arbitrarily came up with this ranking for their own purposes. It never changes. And so, yeah, it will be DNA at some point, which is insane. It's all so aggravating. And of course, I'm not watching the Super Bowl. I haven't for several years since they started kneeling and just done. I think that was 2015. Done. I don't watch the Super Bowl. Don't care. I watch the commercials afterwards when someone does a super cut of that. I don't care. They lost me. And then they start, and now they're doing this crap, which is even more divisive and giving me even less reason to be involved. And I wish more people would do the same thing. Just don't even watch it, or at least don't watch it live. Watch it afterwards. I understand why people do, but look at what we're feeding into. And they're going to say, oh, well, that audience is because we were being more diverse. Look at what diversity did. Look at the number of people. They came for the diversity. No one cares about the diversity.
They're doing the exact opposite of diversity. Okay, yeah. Because diversity is supposed to be representative of the population. I.e., if white males are 25% of the population, then the diversity equation should have 25% white male. If white females are 18% of the population, then diversity equation should be 18%. And that's not what they're doing. They are trying to imbalance it according to whatever they prefer this week.
Yes, that's equity. That is equity. That's why it's diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's not just diversity, it's equity and inclusion. It's intersectionality. It's progressivism. Here's the progressive wish list, and they are shoving it down our throats. Get the politics and the propaganda out of my entertainment.
And that's that's actually the whole reason why New Hampshire's votes are meaningless, is because the DNC doesn't see New Hampshire as being diverse enough. They aren't as diverse as South Carolina is.
Well, that's the excuse. The reality is they got better poll numbers coming out of South Carolina. It'll give them more momentum. So they want to talk about South Carolina. They don't want to talk about New Hampshire because they don't get the same kind of boost. They're not getting the same kind of numbers.
Well, what do you
That's it.
figure?
It's politics.
What do you figure the black population in South Carolina is numerically versus what it is in New Hampshire? New Hampshire probably
65.
has
65 versus 15.
Well, the black population in South Carolina is 34%, and in New Hampshire, I would probably think it's probably 3%.
Something like that.
So now you
Actually,
have
I
to.
think it's higher than that in New Hampshire.
Not by
You think,
much.
you think so? Well, I'm just thinking, but when you juxtapose those numbers, you have to look at how they quantify each state by looking at the percentage of the number of special interest groups and victim groups that are in those states.
Mm.
You know, the higher the percentages of the totality of the victim classes that you can get in one state, the higher your state is going to rank.
Well, because victims have been trained to be dependent on government, which means they can't vote out whoever's there because they need them.
10.4%.
What is it?
10.4%.
That's way more than I would have ever guessed. That's more than, for New Hampshire. Wow.
Yep.
Oh, that's still less than a third of what it is for South Carolina.
True. But which means there's only 1/3 of the dependency being created by victimhood and victimhood ideology, dependency, slavery, mental geopolitical slavery being promoted in New Hampshire versus South Carolina. More victims in South Carolina, more victims that are dedicated to the establishment and the status quo pushed. That's why they want South Carolina first. So they have the big bang. They get to say, look at this huge celebration. Look at all the black voters that support Biden, because you have made it incapable, or you've tried to make it impossible or incapable of living without the government, of not being dependent. You have been enslaving these people voluntarily. You put them into this path and said, please walk down this path. By the way, there is no other path that we're going to create for you. If you don't follow this path, you're in the weeds and it's going to be hell. Follow the path. It doesn't go anywhere. It's not going to elevate you at all, but you're on a path. And that's better than being in the weeds. No, the weeds leads to independence, self-sufficiency. It leads to liberty and freedom. Go in the weeds. Don't follow the path. Don't walk down this path. This is horrendous what is happening. And we are seeing what happens.
And our country was established by not walking on the path.
Exactly.
Okay. We forged a new trail. Literally.
Do you notice the 1960s, the liberals of the 1960s were saying exactly what I'm saying right now. All the various little leftist groups were all saying what I'm saying right now in the 1960s, the 1970s, even into the 1980s. I'm old enough. I know. I lived it. I listened to them say that, put it on TV day after day. And then they got in power. They started getting into the government and getting higher and higher positions in the government to be able to shift laws and to implement their ideas. And now that that they have solidified themselves as a major part of the establishment, now it's all about comply, comply, comply.
Mm-hmm.
Wait a minute. I remember when you guys were saying, no, 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 go off on your own, be self-sufficient. Don't depend on the government. The government isn't the answer. The government is the
Actually,
problem.
that was also the time that communes started coming up.
Yeah. 60s and 70s. They failed.
Well, you know, we just celebrated MLK's birthday this week. And
Yeah.
I think every year it kind of makes me sadder and sadder because they took everything that man fought for and everything that was achieved as we were growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's worse than it was, except for going out there and spraying them with water hoses and lynchings and that kind of stuff. I mean, the rights and where they're living at and prospering in this country, they've wiped it all out.
Have you guys ever seen the Boondocks? It's a TV show, animated TV show called the Boondocks. No? Boondocks. It's a cartoon based on a comic strip of the same name about these young black kids, two young boys, brothers. And they're like, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, somewhere in that range, just about preteen. And they're living with their grandfather. I don't remember why something happened to their family. Who knows? They're living with their grandfather, and he's old school. He's like 1950s, 1960s, old school, hardcore. And you've got one of the boys is kind of like just gets along, doesn't really raise a fuss, and Huey is the activist. And it's the interaction of those kids dealing with the grandfather, in his old school ways. And one of the episodes, it was very successful as a comic strip. That comic strip was made into a TV show. Didn't last long. But they did last long enough to have an episode, which was, what if Martin Luther King wasn't dead? What if Martin Luther King, when he got shot, went into a coma? And everyone just assumed he was dead, and they'd said that and put him on the side, but he's actually been in a coma. And what if he woke up in 2000 out of his coma and got to see what happened after he was gone? And it is one of the most powerful statements, that episode, 30 minutes, one of the most wonderful, powerful statements about what we have done to Martin Luther King. The problem is we have diminished everything about that man. We have minimized him. We've diminished his message.
Well,
We've abused it.
And that's the thing. Okay. Martin Luther King was a Republican. A lot of people don't understand that or realize that.
As were a lot of black men during that time and black people.
And some of the biggest atrocities against the black people have been committed by Democrats. I've talked on here a few times about Black Wall Street, which was the 1921 massacre just outside of Tulsa. The majority of Oklahoma was vastly Democrat during the 1920s. Other atrocities across our history against blacks, against indigenous people, Indians, whatever you want to call them, Native Americans, have been perpetrated by the Democratic Party. But yet the Democrats are the ones that try to claim they're inclusive. No, If you look at a lot of the policies that Democrats want to implement and want to put in, they are literally designed to keep people at a state of dependence. It is modern. It is a form of modern day slavery.
Yeah, that's why I say it.
I think people tell me I don't know what I'm talking about when I tell them that not one single Democrat voted for the Civil Rights Act.
No,
You
That's
don't know what
exactly.
you're
You're
talking
exactly right.
about. You're wrong.
No, that is a historical fact. It's not even an opinion. It's not like you're not even rounding off. It is a fact.
And
Well,
that should tell you something.
Well, it doesn't matter how many Democrats voted for the Civil Rights Act, because the only thing that does matter is how many Democrats took advantage of the Civil Rights Act, and all it took was one, and that was LBJ. And if you know anything about the
Mm.
quote that
Mhm.
LBJ had to say when he signed the Civil Rights Act, then you would understand exactly why it was signed and why all of the other Democrats opposed it in the first place, because the Democrat Party has looked at blacks the same way since the founding of the nation. You belong to us. You cannot be free. You
Yeah.
cannot
Mhm.
think on your own, and we own you. And it goes on and it's perpetrated today because you have a commander in chief, makes me sick to my stomach to even think he's in that position, who said, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black.
Yep.
Yep. Because you can't be. I get it all the time. What do you mean you're a Republican? What do you mean you're conservative? You're black. That is, anyone who thinks that, stop. That is an ignorant statement. Think about how inherently dehumanizing that is. And I don't care if you say that about, you can say that about, you're a woman. How can you be a conservative or a Republican? Stop. Think about what you just said. I don't care which one you want to insert, what race, what color, what gender, what preference you may have. I don't care. The moment you say you can't do that because you are X, or you must be a Democrat because, or whatever, because you are X, stop. Think about what you have just said. That is dehumanizing. I don't care if you intend it to be nice. If you think that it is beneficial, it is dehumanizing. And you have just invalidated. It is the same thing that has happened, again, to reflect back on what we said earlier. It's the same thing as what's happening to the people in New Hampshire.
Mhm.
They are being dehumanized because they don't have a choice. They don't have agency. Nothing they do matters. If anyone doesn't have a choice, they're not human. Humans have choices. Whether you like the choice or think it's right or wrong, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if it's a good choice, bad choice, doesn't matter what it is. Humans make choices. If they don't have a choice for whatever reason, because you don't like it, you're saying they're not human. There's a problem with the person who says that. You can't be that. You must be X. You have a problem because you're dehumanizing people. And no one has balls enough in the major media or in politics to say that to the public's face. And we'd be so much better off if the news media would say that to people's face. At least that's the way I've always seen that. I don't want to speak for anyone else.
Well, and they're trying to portray Trump as this dictatorish personality, but Trump's not the one trying to keep people off ballots. Trump's not the one that is eliminating an entire state's vote. This is all stuff that's being portrayed by the Democrats. Okay, Trump isn't the one that weaponized the U.S. government against its citizens.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, these are not democracy type actions. These are authoritarian actions.
I love it. Sorry. I was just looking at how YouTube is reporting the show. It's really funny because it's showing me there are more live views than actual views on the show. So it doesn't matter what the number is. They're telling me right now there are more people watching the show live than people who have watched the show. So if we're saying that there's 100 people live right now, they're telling us that there's 50 people watching the show. Even though they have a live count of 100, they're saying 50 are watching it.
Yeah.
I'm like, really? I hate the way they try to discourage people.
All right. Well, I'm gonna mess with YouTube right now.
Uh-oh. Here it comes.
You're ready to say goodbye.
We're gonna get shut off.
All right.
Everybody, get ready. I hope you've been recording up to this point because this is it.
I'm reaching back to the armory. All right. I decided that not only will the Range Report continue to do cutting-edge reporting on firearms of all persuasion, which, by the way, there's 2 brand new reviews up right now for 2 Canic pistols, and there'll be a 3rd review up Sunday for the brand new, as yet to be still not released to the public yet, brand new Smith & Wesson model that I obtained earlier today. Yes, I did something I shouldn't have done. But we decided we were gonna start adding archery to the channel. And
Cool.
in doing so, I decided the first thing I wanted to do was pick myself up a very lethal, deadly crossbow. So here it is. Here it is.
Actually, Frank, you know what? I've got a crossbow, and it's probably about. Oh, wait a minute. Let me get the camera. It's probably a little bit wider than I can go. It's not a full size.
It's a pistol version.
Yeah. No,
I have one in my closet.
It's nice size. I have a hard time using it. Would you like it?
Well, I don't know. We may have to think about that. But
I have bows. I have arrows. I have. I think 2 more of the things that you stretch out. It's just because I don't have the strength. I've had it for like 3 or 4 years. It just sits hanging up next to my bed, locked and loaded. I mean, I can fire it once. I can't reload it.
But you want to know the funny thing about this little thing? You know, there was a little bit of a snafu in my ordering process this past week, because when I ordered this, it was because I had ordered this. I ordered a crossbow scope for a full-size crossbow.
Oh.
And I wound up getting a miniature crossbow instead. So I don't know exactly how I'm going to mount these 2 together, but since I got this, and it actually works.
When your optics are larger than the weapon they go on.
Yeah.
Hang on a second.
Since I got this thing and it works, I thought that I would go one step further, and I said, you know, I don't have a compound bow anymore, so I went and I got one of these, a fully functional 1/10 scale compound bow, and it even comes with arrows. So, needless to say, the cats have not been anywhere to be found this week. They just decided they didn't want to have nothing to do with me. But that's all joking aside. We also have one more feature thing that we're going to be doing on the Range Report channel that I have yet to see anybody doing on any of their firearm channels, and it was something I've been waiting to get my hands on for a very, 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 very long time. We are now going to be able to shoot in full spectrum, high definition infrared.
Nice.
So we're going to be able to not only gauge temperatures of firearms and how they perform, but we're going to be able to track bullets in flight. So as the bullets go downrange, we're going to be using this infrared camera to track the trajectory of all the rounds fired. So when we say that we're going to be making like 1,000-yard shots and stuff like that, and people go, no, you're not going to do it, we're going to have the video to back it up. You'll be able to track follow the track of the bullet the entire length of its travel. So we're excited. We got a couple of new toys for the channel.
Well, I'll send you a picture of that crossbow and see if you want it.
Okay. I have to. I wanted to get something out to the mail to you this week, but I'm gonna have to wait till Monday to get it out to you. But rest assured, it's on the way.
That's fine. I told Sue what you said too, and she said no worries.
Okay. Yeah, I've been collecting so much stuff. I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, I've got you, and I'm thinking about it. I should ask, where can she get a box to mail that to you?
If you gotta, just stop at a gun store. Stop at a local gun store and ask them if they have a rifle box.
Well, that's what I thought too, but I mean, I don't know.
Just ask them if they have a cardboard box, or if you go over to like Lowe's or Home Depot, they have a lot of the long skinny boxes they have in there for like plumbing supplies and everything else like that. You might be able to use something like that. You can makeshift a box. Now, I don't know if that thing, if it's a break action, if it comes apart in two pieces or not, or if it's stays one length. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if you can tear it apart. I'll ask her tomorrow. She's in bed, so
I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out tonight, and I'll send you some information on what to do.
So you guys know Frank's finally getting his rifle.
Yeah, so I'm getting my black powder rifle.
Oh, I was going to say, because what's that behind him then?
Yeah. I don't have a rifle here. Not a single. No,
that's
I have
green screen.
I have an array of black powder handguns, and I have a black powder shotgun, and I'm just don't have a black powder rifle. And now I will. So unfortunately, I can't use any of them at the indoor range. I have to take them outside to use them when I go do the review on them, because the indoor range, you have so many people firing thousands and thousands and thousands of rounds all day long. Sometimes there's a buildup of non-spent black powder and smokeless powder. Residue just gets all over everything. So if you're ever in an indoor range, it's very important that you don't use steel case ammunition, because as you eject the steel case, if it should happen to hit the floor
and spark,
you can have a flashover, and all of that unspent powder goes up in a flash and just erupt. So black powder guns, which are notorious for having a lot of projectile powder coming out that's still on fire, they don't like you using them inside. So you have to hold off on that. So
well,
safety
guys,
first.
We're going on 2.5 hours, and I got a book I have to start reading.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about this book, Jen. What's the name and the author?
Okay. I'm going to go off screen for a minute and run upstairs. I'll be right back. You guys discuss.
Okay.
Oh, Jan's getting that. Go ahead and do a little self-promotion here. So, as y'all know, Frank and I founded the Liberty First Foundation. You can find us at l1f.us on our website. I have up on the screen. Here you can find all kinds of stuff that we do. You can learn more about us. You can find us on our social medias, platforms. You can read various articles that we've done, learn quite a bit more about us. Okay. On top of that, if you go to where it says join now, you can actually become a member of the Liberty First Foundation. And
Mike, we need to discuss that. You guys only have.
Actually, I've got a phone call coming up on the 29th that will work into that, Jan.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
but for $15 a year, you can be a member of the Liberty First Foundation. And right now, our stuff is going through PayPal, but we are working on setting up some different payment services.
Okay. So,
and eventually those payment services will be used for a variety of items, including some of the more commercially available stuff that we plan on offering in the future, like hats, t-shirts, other silly stuff like that. But in the meantime, Jan's got a book, and we want to hear a little bit about this.
Okay, it's called Free of Malice, and the author's name is Liz Lazarus. This is actually her first book she wrote of 3 books. I'm just going to read you what it says on the back. It says, Laura Holland awakes in the middle of the night to see a stranger standing in her bedroom doorway. She manages to defend herself from the would-be rapist, though he threatens to return as he retreats. Traumatized with recurring nightmares, Laura seeks therapy and is exposed to a unique treatment called EMDR. She also seeks self-protection, buying a gun against the wishes of her husband. When Laura learns that she could have gone to prison had she shot her fleeing assailant, she decides to write a hypothetical legal cause using the details of the night. She enlists the help of a criminal defense lawyer who proves to be well-versed in the justice system, but has an uncanny resemblance to her attacker. As the two work together to develop the story, Laura's discomfort escalates, particularly when Thomas, the lawyer, seems to know more about the night than he should.
Okay, you're not reading the whole book.
I'm not. I was just reading.
Not reading the whole book. Just wanted to get a little brief synopsis on it because we're trying to give you a plug for what's going to happen. For those of you that don't know, Liz Lazarus happens to be one of the Second Amendment organization, all of our family of two-way people. Liz is one of our champions. She's out there all the time fighting for our rights, doing whatever she can. She's a trainer. She's an avid shooter. Second Amendment proponent, Second Amendment advocate. She's been on Washington, D.C. She's everywhere and does everything. Liz wrote these books, and Liz is going to be on the show in 2 weeks, 3 weeks rather. She's coming on to discuss her new book and to help give us a little bit of guidance into what she's going to be doing and how she's going to be helping us protect and preserve the Second Amendment going forward. She's going to be at SHOT Show this next week, and I'm not going.
Yeah.
I'm really, really friggin' pissed off that I'm not going to be at SHOT Show this year because I had planned on doing a whole big spiel out there, and I can't do it. So, unfortunately, but Liz will be here when she comes back in. We want everybody to tune into the show. It's going to be a good show. She's one of those. She put it that we're happy that she's on our side, then because you don't want to fight against her. So it's really good. But Jan's got her book, and she's going to read that and give us a synopsis. And Jan's going to conduct the interview in a couple of weeks when Liz comes in.
What?
Yeah.
I'm not good at that stuff.
You can't come in and you just can't come in and do commentary here, sweet cheeks. You got to come in and earn your keep, baby.
Interviews are fun and easy. No worries.
Now you're just gonna you're the one who's got the copy of the book, so you're just gonna lead. You're gonna lead her in. Ask her a couple of questions about the book and stuff like that. And more than anything else, We want your honest assessment of the book.
Okay, I don't know if I would agree to doing all this if I would have known all of this was going to happen.
Well, guess
That's why
what?
you got the book first.
That's why we call the bait and switch. And if you want your little toys that I have over here that are going to be sending out to you.
Oh, that blackmail, huh?
Candy. Lots of candy.
No, I'm the white male. Vass is the black male.
Hello.
Oh,
Marshall, the
Yeah.
ambiguous male.
something's a little off topic.
No, you're
but
kidding
it kind
me,
of
Mike.
follows along the lines of what we discuss on here sometimes. The other day,
Now
I was
not
on
do
my
I
way
only
home.
have to read the book, but I have to write a review and I have to come up with questions in 3 weeks.
Yeah,
Thanks, Frank.
Plenty of time.
We wouldn't ask you to do if we didn't have confidence in you. Marshall, say what you're going to say, buddy. What
so
happened?
anyway, when somebody normally breaks down along the side of the road, what's one thing that they typically do?
Put the
Oh,
hazards on,
Scream.
pull off
Well,
to the side.
Frank got
and
it. They turn their
offer
hazards on.
help.
Yeah.
What happens if your Tesla that you're driving no longer has battery?
It gets hit.
You don't have any hazards.
Yeah. You
I
also
saw
don't have.
on my way home the other night a Tesla alongside the road, no hazards.
You know what? They also don't have heat in the winter, where batteries die en masse.
See, now,
Oh, yeah.
Because
now,
There's
now
been
people-
story
now
after
people
story
say-
after story.
Well, people will say, well, if you have a gas engine or a diesel engine and it should die in the cold and you're sitting there by the side of the road, you also don't have any heat. And that's a valid point. However, the one thing about when you're driving a gas or a diesel engine, vehicle with, and it should happen to die in the wintertime, you've got something called thermal mass.
Mhm.
Mhm.
You've got
Heat
a
of the
750-pound block of steel in the front of your car that's 450 degrees internally. And you've got fluid throughout the car that's 220 degrees. That's going to maintain a certain amount of warmth for a certain period of time. When your battery doesn't produce the heat, it goes cold quickly.
Yep.
yeah.
Oh,
And
and speaking of that, did you see that the Ford Motor Company, which their new flagship vehicle was the Ford Lightning, the Ford F-150 Lightning, the
They're putting
electric
production
version,
on it.
they're cutting back on production of it because of how badly the performance of EVs have been.
Mhm.
because they suck.
Where the hell did Jan go?
I don't know.
It's
She
true.
said maybe
She said
she.
she was going to leave.
Oh, Jan.
So
Oh, I'm
agreed.
sorry, sweetie.
It is
Jan,
that
we
time.
love you. We'll see you next week.
It is that time. But
Yeah,
yeah, it is.
I got to speak to her tomorrow.
1,001 problems with 1,001 problems with electric vehicles.
Now, I saw multiple reports from across the country where everybody's having cold snaps, where the supercharged stations are just dying, leaving
Yeah.
hundreds
12
of people
stations.
stranded.
You get 12 plugs, 11 of them are broken. Wait till the crackheads find out how much copper is in one of them things.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, James Lucid says the hydrogen power is the key. To an extent, hydrogen is a fantastic alternative. I'm not big on these eco vehicles myself. Hydrogen has got the one thing is the byproduct is going to be water when you break it down and stuff like that. I think the future is really going to be going back the opposite way. We're going to have to start going into diesel electric. You look at our train systems. You have locomotives 75 years ago went from coal to diesel, and then you have a big train towing a huge diesel tank behind it to keep the diesel motor going to go across. Now the motor is significantly smaller because it's a generator. It's a diesel engine that produces electricity that hook it to a generator, and the trains are electric drive. I think that's where they should be focusing stuff is the diesel electric. We can build incredibly clean burning, efficient diesel motors. And if you have a diesel motor hooked to a generator, you're probably going to have your best yield of results. It'll be a mix of all worlds. You know, I don't know.
We could do a lot of things if the goal, quite honestly, if the goal was just to get a cleaner planet, there are 1,001 things that we could and are doing. That's not the goal. These are all the window dressing on a political movement, and this is just a means to that end.
It.
Well, the
Because
goal,
they're not. If
well,
they
the
really
goal
want
for
to
any
clean,
automaker should be profit. The goal for
Huh?
any automaker and the investments and the people that work there and the people that own stock in it should always be the profit. How much profit are you going to make? If making a product that's clean generates the most profit, then it's a win-win. But if you're going to try and build a business around things because they're clean, then you have to take the profit out of it entirely. Now you're going by an agenda and not your agenda driven, not monetary driven.
But here's the thing: they're not making vehicles. Electric vehicles aren't more clean.
No, they're not. No, because
so you're only going for agenda. It's not even like, oh, we're being clean, kind of. It's not cost effective, and we're doing. This is purely politics. They're not clean at all. They're not effective at all.
Here's the funny thing on all this. Okay, Elon Musk came out with Teslas, right? And Tesla right now is the only EV manufacturer that is actually producing a profit with EVs.
Yeah.
Okay. Every other electric vehicle is not producing profits.
Well,
yeah.
Well, that's because every other company that's producing EVs, they're doing it as a sideline to appease a certain demographic and appease a political agenda where at least Tesla, he's saying, all right, this is all I'm going to do. This is all until we get it right. We're just going to keep doing it.
Yeah. Everyone else is doing it.
It wasn't even to address climate change or anything like that. It was, there are inherent advantages with electric vehicles. And I think it's Agent Black came up with it. Okay, electric vehicles or electric motors do have more power, more torque than diesel or petrol, or than an ICE engine, internal combustion. But when you pair the two, then you get the advantages of both.
Again,
okay, you get the easy fueling, the quicker refueling, etc., and you get the advantages of the electric torque. Okay, I don't think you're going to be able to have a long, sustainable all-electric vehicle.
No, because weather happens. Because weather is a reality, and you take it out into salt on the roads, which has an impact. You have electric storms, rain. You have cold weather, hot weather. These things all affect it. But here's the thing: if this were just market driven, if we would allow it to be market driven, even if they said, well, we've got to be more efficient, we've got to be more eco-friendly, fantastic. Car companies and the manufacturers and the designers would find the most effective, both in terms of cost and in terms of power and function. They'd find something that could do all of that because they would be driven by the profit motive. There is no profit motive. They're not doing this because they're trying to make the best vehicle. They're doing this because they don't want to piss off the politicians. They want the government subsidy, the guaranteed sales of their vehicles to the federal government, who is the biggest buyer. They don't care.
And several states have literally said by 2035, new vehicles will not be, they will not allow internal combustion engines in new vehicles.
Right,
by
which doesn't mean
2035.
right, but that doesn't mean you're going to have a good electric vehicle.
No.
It just means you must have one. So you're going to have crap. It's going to be crap that's going to do what we see right now. You're in the middle of God knows where. I mean, think about upstate
In
New York.
California will pull the same stunt that they did with the diesel engines, and will basically make it get to a point where they say, at this point, we will no longer allow gas vehicles to operate in our state.
Yeah, and people are going to, it's going to increase the cost. It's going to upset the transportation of goods throughout the country. It's going to affect the economy. It's going to usher in problems because it's inefficient. It's ineffective. We don't have the right, we don't even forget optimum. We don't even have good options right now because everyone's chasing the federal money. They're chasing the government picking winners and losers. And every time when we ask the federal government to pick a winner at anything, the federal government, which doesn't know anything in and of itself, always picks. This is one of the few things that the federal government is very good at, picking the worst option always. They always pick the worst option.
Well, battery powered vehicles are, I don't see battery technologies advancing enough to make long running electric vehicles.
We'd need a
I
brand
think
new
the only way
scientific.
that you're going to be able to do any type of a suitable transition to electric vehicle transportation is somehow do wireless charging via the roadways.
Well, no, we need a scientific breakthrough, whether it's in terms of transmission, collection, storage. We need a breakthrough because in all of those areas, which are critical to any kind of mass production of electric vehicles or just a mass transition of society into more electric based everything, we cannot, especially if we're getting it from solar, wind, renewable energy, we must have a breakthrough in technology. It will not work without that. We do not have the science. It will not work. It doesn't work anywhere in the world, and they've been trying to make it work for 70 years, and we're still not there. This is stupid.
I want to see nuclear vehicles.
You know what? No, I don't want to see nuclear. Not without more. This isn't Fallout, okay? No.
All it is, I know that there was this new technology that they were talking about as far as the shipping industry. They're making ships now that are powered by the wind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that.
And from what I understand, if they equipped the big ships with these big, so I guess you would call it a mast, and you have enough fabric,
Yeah, it's an airflow.
Yeah, if you enough fabric strung from it, you can catch enough wind to help propel you forward. Now, if they're smart, they'll use some of the flexible fabric they use in photovoltaic material and have a sail that's also a solar panel so that they could power the ship when the wind don't blow.
That's assuming that you could have a sail that's flexible, which they can't.
Oh no, you can. They're all flexible. They're all flexible.
They're not effective. Those are very, at least the last that I was checking into that, prone to breaking down, not very conductive. They have poor. They're like one of the worst options.
What does it but it doesn't matter if it works. It's all. You know.
Well, yeah. Now, the government will buy it just because it exists. Yeah.
All right, listen, gentlemen.
Yeah.
I'm gonna bolt out of here because it's
me too.
minute 2. I have a border collie that I've just heard whimpering on the other side of my armory door that really is probably needing to go outside.
Yeah, I'm about to do the same thing. Okay,
Ah, look at that. The ocean bird. Here,
looks
captured
stupid.
in its wild environment, is the ocean bird, the world's first wind-powered, solar-powered liner.
I just see a wave
Unsinkable.
knocking that right over. I just see a wave knocking the whole thing over. It's like bowling pins. Bang, knocked it all
Would
over.
be, yeah, the rogue wave would have just been target for that.
Just decimate it. But but no, it is
Okay.
that time. It is that time,
Why don't
guys.
you shut us out of here, Frank?
All right, I'm gonna just bolt out real quick, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, thank you for joining us this week. As you have for the past every week that you guys come back, you make the show more and more successful. You push us to keep going further. We really do appreciate the love and support that you guys show, and the lively conversation that we have in the comment section is outstanding. Cannot appreciate enough of that. Now all you guys got to do is hit the thumbs up and the share button so that you can get your friends to come over and help us with the algorithm too. In due time, we understand that.
And hit that bell.
What happened?
Hit the bell.
Yeah, hit the bell. Which bell?
So they get
Notification bell.
notified when we're on.
Oh, yeah, the little bell. It's when you subscribe and you hit the little bell and you get notified. Now, you guys know there's a lot of ways to watch the show. You can watch this show on YouTube. You can watch the show on multiple channels over on the Facebook platform, and you can cross-comment on all of them. And we're all here. And as you can see, we try to respond to everything that comes across. It's the way we are. Open book. We have a call-in number we didn't broadcast across the screen tonight, but it's 607-226-8033. We'll put that up for next weekend's broadcast so that hopefully we'll have a report for what new came out of SHOT Show, even though I'm not going to be there. We're going to see if we can't get a guest in who was at the show, get some reporting on what was new and exciting and what is coming to the market. Please be sure to check out the Range Report on YouTube. We got a lot of fantastic new gun reviews over there. And hopefully this summer we're going to be visited by a couple of our friends who are on the screen. Maybe if they want to make a trip to North Carolina and have a range day or something like that, because we got some big stuff coming on. But it's beside the point. Visit us at www.l1f.us. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and all the rest of that as the Liberty First Foundation. And I'm going to kick it back to Michael. I'm going to sign off with my call. That's you guys be safe and shoot straight. And I'll let Eminem up above you guys handle it.
Well, he said it all, didn't he?
He did.
All right.
He did.
I'm
Well,
exhausted.
we do want to thank everybody who's in the comments tonight. Do appreciate your engagement. And we are here every week, every Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time. Like Frank said, you can find us on Facebook, YouTube. I'm working on trying to figure out how we can go live on Instagram. And we are live on X. Twitter, X.
Yes.
Okay. And we will see you all next week.
And no, this is not a fancy backdrop. Not a fancy backdrop. I'm just not allowed to touch anything. Otherwise, YouTube will freaking pull the episode down. I assure you, this is not a green screen. If it was, I can touch my on-air sign. That's not a firearm. And we're going off here.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.
Shut it off. Good night, guys. Have a great night.
Night.